Okay, so get this. We're talking huge changes in Malaysia.
Mm-hmm.
Like, picture a government hitting the reset button on its entire civil service.
Right.
That's what we're diving into today, the SSPA.
Right. The System Saran Perkhidmatan Awam, or SSPA for short.
Catchy, right?
This document we're looking at is basically like the blueprint for a total bureaucratic makeover in Malaysia.
Exactly. It's out with the old system, the SSM, which was all about salaries.
Mm-hmm.
And in with this whole new structure, they're calling it the SSPA.
That's a huge deal.
Huge. We're not talking like a little tweak here and there. This is a complete system overhaul.
Absolutely.
New salary structures, obviously, but also career paths, how they're recognizing language skills.
Mm-hmm.
It's like taking everything you thought you knew about how a government works and flipping the script.
Yeah, and it's all designed to tackle some pretty major challenges the Malaysian civil service has been facing.
Like what? Give me the rundown.
Well, for starters, they're trying to become way more efficient.
Makes sense. Governments and efficiency. Not always two things that go hand in hand.
They're also really focused on attracting top talent.
Because who doesn't want to work for the government?
Right. It's not always seen as the most lucrative or exciting career path.
Fair enough. So how are they planning to change that?
That's where the SSPA comes in. It's about making the civil service a more attractive and competitive place to work.
Got it. So it's like a major recruitment drive.
In a way. But it's also about fairness, making sure that everyone within the civil service is being treated equitably.
Okay. I like where this is going. So
Yeah.
how does this whole SSPA thing actually work?
So instead of just forcing everyone into a new system,
Which, let's be honest, rarely goes smoothly.
they're actually giving existing employees a choice.
Interesting.
It's like this opt-in approach to the new system.
So you can stick with the old SSM way of doing things if you want.
Exactly. Or you can make the switch to SSPA. It's pretty fascinating.
I bet. Talk about a tough decision. It's like being offered a chance to jump into a brand new car with all the bells and whistles.
Right. But you're kind of comfortable with your old reliable car, even though it might be a bit outdated.
And you have no idea how to use all those fancy new features on the new one.
That's a great analogy. And the best part is the document actually lays out completely different procedures depending on your current job.
Wait, really? So it's like choosing your character class in a role-playing game.
Exactly. But instead of deciding on your magical abilities,
You're making decisions that could impact your entire career.
high stakes.
So let's talk about some of those big changes. What's SSBA bringing to the table?
Well, one of the most interesting things they're doing is reclassifying jobs.
Reclassifying jobs. So new titles, more impressive business cards.
It's more than just new titles. Some roles are being completely absorbed into others, which could lead to some really interesting career changes.
Okay, now you've got my attention. Give me an example.
Well, imagine you've been a park manager for years, right? You're used to working outdoors, managing teams, dealing with whatever nature throws at you.
Sounds idyllic. Sign me up.
But then this new SSPA system comes along, and suddenly your skills might be better suited for an administrative role in a totally different department.
Whoa. Talk about a plot twist. From the great outdoors to a desk job, that's a big change.
A big change, but it's all part of this bigger strategy to create a more flexible and mobile workforce.
So breaking down those traditional walls between different government departments.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that skills are transferable and that someone with experience in one area might excel in a totally different role.
I like it. It's like a government scale game of Tetris where they're trying to fit all these different skills and experiences into the most efficient structure possible.
Exactly. It's about optimizing the entire system, not just sticking people in boxes and saying, that's it, that's your career path.
Okay, but let's be real for a second. We've talked about career changes and flexibility, but what about everyone's favorite topic, money? What's SSPA doing about salaries?
Ah, yes, the million-dollar question. Literally.
Oh.
Well, SSPA introduces a completely revamped salary structure.
Hit me with the details.
We're talking a new minimum wage, a bigger emphasis on performance-based incentives. It's a whole new ballgame.
So no more coasting along on seniority alone. You actually have to, perform.
It seems that way.
Yeah.
They're really trying to create a more competitive and merit-based system where your performance is directly tied to your compensation.
Interesting. And I'm guessing they're not being shy about these changes. They're putting it all out there.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
Transparency is key here. Buried in this document are these incredible charts that map out the old salary grades alongside the new ones.
It's like deciphering an ancient treasure map, but instead of X marks the spot, it's here's where your pay grade might land.
Exactly. It's about giving employees a clear understanding of how their hard work and performance can translate into real rewards.
I love that. It's like they're saying, hey, we value you and we're willing to pay you what you're worth, but it's not just about the Benjamins, right?
Right. There's more to it than that.
There's always more to it. Spill the tea. What else is SSPA cooking up?
They're also giving language skills a serious upgrade in the SSPA.
Okay, now we're talking. Everyone knows I'm a sucker for a good language perk.
Well, get this. Knowing languages like Hokkien or Cantonese could actually give you a leg up in your career under this new system.
Oh, seriously? So, like, if you're fluent in Cantonese, you get a fast track to the top.
Not exactly fast track.
Mm-hmm.
But they've created a tiered system where certain language skills can actually boost your salary or even open doors to specialized roles.
So it's like a skill bonus. Like in those video games, you level up your language skills and bam, higher pay grade.
Pretty much. It's about recognizing that in a diverse country like Malaysia, those language skills are incredibly valuable.
Absolutely. Being able to connect with people in their own language is huge. Whether you're dealing with citizens directly or just trying to navigate a complex bureaucracy.
Exactly. It shows they're really thinking about the needs of a diverse population and how language plays a role in providing effective and inclusive government services.
It's like they're saying, hey, we value all languages, not just the official ones, which is a really powerful message. But let's switch gears for a second. We've talked a lot about the what of SSPA, but what about the how? How are they planning to make sure all these changes actually stick?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
And it all comes down to implementation. But one thing that really stands out in this document is the emphasis on training and development, especially when it comes to TVET qualifications.
TVET. Okay, break that down for me.
TVET stands for Technical and Vocational Education and Training. It's all about equipping people with the practical skills and knowledge they need for specific jobs.
So less about theory and more about hands-on experience.
Exactly. It's about bridging the gap between the classroom and the real world.
Got it. So how does TVET tie into the SSPA?
Well, they're making TVET qualifications a key part of the new system. It's not just about having a degree anymore. It's about having the right skills for the job. Skills that are directly relevant to what the civil service actually does.
So it's like they're saying, hey, we need people who can actually do the work, not just people who look good on paper.
Precisely. And by prioritizing TVET qualifications, they're aligning the civil service with Malaysia's broader development goals. The country's making a big push for a more skilled workforce, and they're using SSPA to lead by example.
Smart move. It's like they're killing two birds with one stone, modernizing the civil service and addressing a critical skills gap at the same time.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really interesting. Remember that whole OPSIAN thing? The choice existing employees have to either stick with the old system or switch to SSPA.
Yeah, how could I forget? It's like choosing between two alternate realities.
Right. Well, that opt-in approach is even more important when you consider this focus on TVET. Imagine you're a civil servant who's been doing things a certain way for years.
Comfortable in their ways, set in their routines.
Exactly. And suddenly this new system comes along with all its emphasis on TVET and new job classifications. It could be overwhelming.
To say the least, it's like being asked to learn a whole new language.
That's a great way to put it. And that's where the OPSIAN comes in. It gives employees the time and space to adapt. They can see where they fit into this new system, figure out if their skills are transferable or if they need to pursue additional training.
So it's less about forcing people to change overnight and more about empowering them to take control of their own career paths.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that change can be difficult and giving people the tools and support they need to succeed.
I like it. It's a much more humane approach than just saying sink or swim. But let's be honest, all these changes, all this talk about skills and training, it all comes down to one thing: results. How is SSPA going to measure success?
That's the million-dollar question. And thankfully, the document actually lays out a pretty comprehensive performance management system.
Oh, so they're not just throwing a bunch of changes at the wall and hoping something sticks.
Not at all. They're being very deliberate about tracking progress. They've got clear goals, regular feedback mechanisms, and most importantly, a direct link between performance and those revamped salary structures we talked about earlier.
So no more coasting on seniority alone. You actually have to, perform.
It seems that way. They're really emphasizing accountability and meritocracy, making it clear that your performance matters and that it will be rewarded accordingly.
Music to my ears. But let's not forget those fascinating details we keep uncovering. You mentioned transparency, and it really shows in how they've addressed language skills. We talked about Hokkien and Cantonese, but it goes even deeper than that.
Right. Absolutely. It's not just about ticking boxes. It's about recognizing the nuances of language. They've created a system that rewards fluency in specific dialects and even rare languages, which is pretty unusual.
Okay, now I'm really curious. What does that look like in practice? Are we talking like a bonus for knowing a rare dialect?
It's not quite that straightforward, but essentially, yes. They've developed a system where certain language skills can actually translate into higher salary grades or even open doors to specialized roles.
So someone who's fluent in a specific indigenous language might be more valuable to a particular department, and the SSPA recognizes and rewards that. That's amazing.
It is. It shows a deep understanding of the country's diverse linguistic landscape and a commitment to using that diversity to improve government services.
This whole deep dive has been like peeling back layers of an onion. Just when you think you've got a handle on it, there's another fascinating detail. Speaking of which, let's talk about those employee benefits.
Ah, yes, the perks. We already touched on the tree climbing incentive, but the document is actually full of these really specific and sometimes quite surprising allowances and benefits.
It's like they went through every possible scenario and said, okay, what if someone needs to, and then created a benefit for it.
It's almost as if they sat down with civil servants from every department and asked, what would make your job easier? What do you need to perform at your best?
And then they actually listened. But seriously, what kind of benefits are we talking about here? Give me some examples. Okay, hit me with it. What kind of benefits are we talking about here?
Well, you've got your standard housing allowances, leave policies, the usual stuff.
Right, the bread and butter of government work.
Exactly. But then it gets interesting. They have this thing called a difficult area allowance.
Difficult area allowance. What's that all about? Like if you're assigned to the department with the worst filing system.
Not quite. Think more along the lines of remote areas, tough climates.
Oh, so if you're posted out in the middle of nowhere, braving the elements, makes sense.
Exactly. It's to incentivize people to take on those postings. And then there's the special skills allowance.
Okay, now that one sounds intriguing. Break it down for me.
So certain roles require really specialized knowledge. Think things you can't just learn overnight.
Right, like how to operate a 100-year-old printing press.
Exactly. Those skills are valuable. So they've built in a way to reward people who have them.
So it's not just about what department you're in, but also what you bring to the table. I like it.
It's all part of this bigger shift we've been talking about. They're really trying to modernize the civil service, make it more responsive and adaptable.
It's ambitious, but from what we've seen in this document, they've really thought it through.
They really have. It's about more than just tweaking a few things. They're trying to change the entire culture, make it more result-oriented.
It's like taking a 100-year-old house and giving it a top-to-bottom renovation. You might preserve the charm, but you're updating it for how people live today.
And who knows, maybe this will inspire other countries to rethink their own civil services.
Now that would be something. But for now, we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out in Malaysia. It's a fascinating experiment, and I'm eager to see the results.
Me too. It's a good reminder that even the biggest, most complex systems can be changed for the better.
Absolutely. Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us as we explored the ins and outs of Malaysia's civil service transformation. It's a topic that's sure to keep us talking for a long time to come.
Definitely one to watch. Thanks for having me.
And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, keep exploring those fascinating documents.